Cheyenne County, Wyoming Territory, October 1886. Rain hit the cabin windows hard. Each drop made noise like the worry between two people inside. Deputy Jake Sullivan stood at Maria Torres's door. His uniform was soaked. His blue eyes showed feelings that had nothing to do with his job and everything to do with wanting her. Mrs. Torres, his voice was rough. I came to warn you. Sheriff Blake is coming for you tonight. Maria's dark eyes didn't show fear. They showed something more dangerous. At 39, she knew what she wanted. Right now, she wanted the man standing at her door. What about you, Deputy? She asked quietly, stepping closer. Are you here as a lawman or as a man? The question hung in the air like smoke. Outside, thunder rolled across the Wyoming plains. Bad men were making evil plans in the dark. But right now, all that mattered was the space between them getting smaller. In the Wild West, some wants run deeper than justice. Some loves are worth dying for. 3 weeks earlier, Jake Sullivan had come to Cheyenne County thinking he knew right from wrong. At 28, he'd been a soldier. He'd seen blood spilled for what was right. He thought justice was something you could hold like a loaded gun. He was about to learn how wrong he was. His first sight of Maria Torres came on a Tuesday morning outside Henderson's store. She stood perfectly still as 3 town women blocked her path. Their faces showed the mean kind of righteousness that small towns do best. We don't serve your kind here anymore, Mrs. Henderson said with hate. Criminal money isn't welcome. Maria didn't move or argue. She stood proud like a Spanish queen. Her brown skin glowed in the morning sun. Her dark hair was pulled back to show her graceful neck. She wore a simple brown dress that couldn't hide her womanly figure, the curves that made Jake's mouth go dry. Ladies, Jake's voice cut through their poison like a knife. He tipped his hat. Seems like you're blocking the walkway. The women scattered like scared chickens. Maria's eyes met Jake's, dark as midnight, smart, careful. When she nodded thanks, something moved in his chest. Much obliged, Deputy, she said. Her voice had just a hint of an accent that made his name sound like music. That should have been the end of it. But some storms, once they start, can't be stopped. Sheriff Marcus Blake found him that afternoon with a knowing smirk. See, you met the Torres woman. Seemed like a lady needing help, Jake replied carefully. Blake's laugh was ugly. Lady? Boy, that woman's the widow of Diego Torres, biggest cattle thief this county ever saw. We hanged him 3 years back. That Mexican woman has been nothing but trouble ever since. The words hit Jake like a slap. Not because of what Blake said about Maria, but because of the mean way he said it. The way he talked about a woman who'd just buried her husband. Even so, Jake said quietly, she should be treated with respect. Blake's eyes got narrow. You listening to me, boy? That woman is poison. Stay away or you'll end up like her husband, dancing at the end of a rope. But it was already too late for staying away. That night Jake found himself riding past Maria's cabin, telling himself it was just patrol. The small house sat in a valley with trees all around and a view of the mountains that took his breath away. Smoke came from the chimney. Through the windows he could see warm lamplight. It looked like home. It looked like peace. It looked like everything he'd never known he wanted. The next meeting came when Louis, Maria's 16-year-old son, got sick with fever. The doctor was out of town and the boy was burning up. Jake found Maria outside Henderson's store again, this time begging for medicine. Her proud face was finally cracking. Please, she whispered to Mrs. Henderson, it's just willow bark. My boy is dying. Should have thought of that before you married a thief, came the cold reply. Jake stepped forward, his hand moving to his wallet. I'll take a bottle of that medicine, and anything else Mrs. Torres needs. The ride to Maria's cabin was quiet but full of electricity. She sat beside him on the wagon seat, close enough that he could smell her scent, soap and wood smoke and something that made his blood run hot. Why? She asked finally. Why are you helping us? Jake looked at her then, really looked. The worry lines around her eyes. The way she held herself like she was ready to fight the world. The strength in her hands and the hurt she tried to hide. Because it's right, he said simply. Inside the cabin, Louis lay burning with fever while Maria worked over him with the desperate skill of a woman who'd already lost too much. Jake watched her cool the boy's head, whisper soft Spanish words, never leave his side. This was no criminal's wife. This was a mother fighting for her child's life. When Louis finally broke his fever near dawn, Maria sagged against the wall with tiredness and relief. Without thinking, Jake caught her, his hands on her waist, feeling the warmth of her skin through her thin nightgown. For a moment they stood frozen. Her face was inches from his. Her lips were parted. Her eyes searched his face for something she seemed almost afraid to find. The air between them crackled with want and danger. "Deputy Sullivan," she whispered, and his name on her lips sounded like a prayer. "Jake," he said roughly. "Just Jake." Her hand came up to touch his cheek. "Jake," she said again, tasting the word. "You should go before people talk." But neither of them moved. Neither wanted to break the spell of dawn light and whispered names and the feel of her body warm and soft against his. It was Louis's weak call for water that finally broke the moment. But as Jake rode back to town, he knew something had changed forever. The line had been crossed. There was no going back now. Over the next 2 weeks, he found reasons to ride past her cabin. Sometimes she was hanging clothes and he'd watch the way the wind pressed her skirts against her legs. Sometimes she was in the garden and he'd see her bend to tend the plants in ways that made him shift in his saddle. And sometimes she was waiting for him. "You're playing with fire," she told him one evening as he helped her fix a broken fence post. The work had made them both warm and she'd undone the top buttons of her dress, showing the delicate hollow of her throat. "Maybe I don't mind getting burned," he replied, his voice husky. She looked at him then with those midnight eyes and he saw want there, raw and honest and dangerous as wildfire. "I'm 11 years older than you, Jake Sullivan. I've been married. I've got a son. I'm not some young girl you can court proper." "I'm not looking for a young girl," he said quietly. "I'm looking for a woman." The words hung between them like a challenge. Maria stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the heat from her skin, could see the quick rise and fall of her chest. "You don't know what you're asking for," she whispered. "Then show me," he said. The kiss that almost happened was stopped by the sound of horses coming. Sheriff Blake and 2 of Harrison Carter's men, their faces hard as winter stone. Maria stepped back quickly, smoothing her skirts. But Jake saw the red in her cheeks, the way her lips were still parted as if she were still waiting for his mouth on hers. "Deputy," Blake's voice was cold. "What brings you out here?" "Routine patrol," Jake replied, his hand moving toward his gun. Something in Blake's tone set every nerve on edge. "Funny kind of patrol," sneered Tom Jackson, Carter's foreman. "Looks more like socializing with undesirable elements." Maria's spine straightened, her chin lifting with that pride Jake was beginning to love. "Gentlemen," she said coolly, "you're on my property. State your business or move on." Blake's smile was ugly. "Just wanted to remind you, Maria, that Carter's offer still stands. $500 for this little spread. Mighty generous for worthless land. And I told you before, this land isn't for sale." "Everything's for sale," Carter's other man said with a laugh that made Jake's skin crawl. "Just a matter of finding the right price." The threat in his words was clear. Jake stepped forward, his hand resting openly on his gun. "I think the lady made herself clear." Blake's eyes got dangerous. "Deputy, I think it's time you headed back to town." It was an order, and they both knew it. Jake was trapped between duty and wanting, between his badge and his heart. But as he looked at Maria, saw the fear she was trying so hard to hide, he made his choice. "I'll head back when my patrol is finished," he said quietly. The tension stretched tight as a bowstring. Finally, Blake nodded curtly. "Don't stay too long, boy. These roads can be dangerous after dark." After they left, Maria sank onto her porch steps, her calm finally breaking. "You shouldn't have done that." Blake doesn't forget challenges to his authority. Jake sat beside her, close enough to feel her shaking. "Maria, what aren't you telling me? What does Carter really want with this land?" She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then quietly, "It's not the land he wants. It's what my husband hid here.